So for event begin play, we set invisible on and then make sure we enable the input for the player controller and set enable to be on tick. And then when F is pressed, there is either pass run visible off or pass run visible on, where it plays a timeline from the start or from the reverse. And then these are the functions that it sets, where pass run visible on just sets the boolean on, pass run visible off sets the boolean off, and pass from visible master just checks what it is. And this is the timeline node, where it's a curve going up for it to start. And this is for the Niagara particle effect, where the emitter state is infinite, where it started as a loop, it's infinite. And then I've changed the color and the shape of it, and I've made sure the velocity is coming from an area rather than a single point. So this is to set the visibility, and then I enabled input for player controller on event begin play, and on event tick it checks if the master is true or false, and if it's true it puts the Niagara effect invisible, and if it's false it puts the Niagara effect visible. So this is for the actual stack mesh, so I'm adding the input for the player controller and to make sure it's available on event tick. It checks the master, and if it's true it turns off the visibility and collision. If it's false it turns on visibility and collision. And this is the dynamic one where I get the player input from the controller, and I also allow you to set the static mesh, which checks the starting visibility, and if a visibility is true and a collision is true, and then on event tick it checks what the original one was, and then in a complicated way it does the reverse of what it is ticked to do when the player selects the blueprint. The player can select if it starts invisible or starts visible, and also what the static mesh is, as you can see here. I'm going to demonstrate this by placing down the dynamic cube, which I will change to a cylinder, where it starts visible and then turns invisible. But then I can also change that so it starts invisible and then turns invisible, or turns visible, sorry. So I've made a dynamic system where you can put different things in the past or the present.